Number 1.
Bruce was last seen at her children's babysitter's home in Sedalia, Missouri on October 4, 2008. She had left the children there earlier that day so she could go out for the evening. She returned at midnight and gave the babysitter more money and asked her to watch the children for the rest of the night. Bruce was seen at the Malone's bar on Main Street with a young man driving a late-model red Ford F-150 truck earlier on the night of her disappearance. She left with the man at 11:30 p.m. She has never been heard from again. Police have identified the man Bruce was with on the night she vanished. He traveled to Atlanta, Georgia after her disappearance, and police questioned him about Bruce after he was arrested there on unrelated charges of marijuana possession and driving on a suspended license. Authorities haven't named him publicly, but they are calling him a person of interest in her case. He told his questioners that he and Bruce parted ways after they left the bar, and he never saw her after that. Bruce is described as a devoted parent who would never abandon her two children willingly. She missed both their birthdays later in October 2008. She left all her belongings behind, including her hairbrush and toothbrush, and she doesn't have credit cards, debit cards, a checking account, a cellular phone or a car. Foul play is suspected in her disappearance.
Number 2.
Brucks was last seen when his mother dropped him off at the Country Kitchen restaurant in Jefferson City, Missouri on the evening of April 10, 1995. He planned to meet an unidentified person there. On April 11, Brucks called his mother and said he was at the lake and someone else was going to give him a ride home. He was supposed to drive his mother and his mother's friend to St. Louis, Missouri that day, but never showed up. He has never been heard from again. At the time he went missing, Brucks was carrying a $5,000 check from an insurance policy. The check was later cashed in Columbia, Missouri. The identity of the person who cashed the check is known, but the individual's name has not been publicly released. He had struggled with addiction for about 10 years prior to his disappearance. He'd been through rehabilitation several times but couldn't stay clean. His sister believes it's possible someone Brucks met in one of the addiction treatment programs harmed him. Brucks left behind a young son. The circumstances surrounding his disappearance are unclear, but foul play is suspected.
Number 3.
The son and sole caregiver of a missing 77-year-old woman apparently killed himself about the time she disappeared, police said Friday. Earlier this week, St. Peter's police issued a silver alert for Mary Buckley, who neighbors said they had not seen since the middle of the month. Police realized she was missing when they went to her home in the 700 block of Sugar Glen Drive to notify her of her son's death, and she was not there. Her car was missing. Her son's body was found Tuesday by some hikers in a wooded area of Eco Park in St. Charles, police said. He was 51. Because of Buckley's medical ailments and limited mobility, neighbors said it was unusual for her to be away from her residence, police said. Her son was her only caregiver, and he was living at her residence just prior to his death. On Thursday, police searched the Missouri River near the Blanchette Landing River access for Buckley's 2004 Hyundai Santa Fe, but did not find her car. However, a train conductor notified police about 6 p.m. that he had spotted a silver SUV, matching the description of Buckley's vehicle, in a wooded area in Bridgeton, off the railroad tracks, just south of Highway 370. Police confirmed that the vehicle was Buckley's, but they found no signs of her. Police said they believed that the vehicle was left at the location by Buckley's son. Police said Buckley has Alzheimer's disease and is unable to survive without oxygen. She is very frail and is not mobile. Police believe that if Buckley is still alive, she would be in a healthcare facility, but they have not been able to locate her. Anyone with information is asked to call the St. Peter's Police Department at 636-278-2222 or anonymously to the Crime Solvers hotline at 636-278-1000.
Number 4.
Sarah Burton, 28, went missing during the early morning hours of July 16, 2018. The mother of two was last seen at an apartment building in northwest Joplin, Missouri. When Sarah was first reported missing, it was believed that she was last seen near 10th Street and Rex Avenue on the east side of Joplin. This is the location where Sarah's friend dropped her off after a night out together. Sarah reportedly told her friend that she wanted to walk the rest of the way home. A few days later, said friend brought Sarah's purse and one of her shoes to her parents' house. The friend told Sarah's parents that Sarah had left the items in her car. Sarah's mother reported her missing the following day. A few months into the investigation, detectives learned that Sarah was seen an additional time after being dropped off by her friend. A detective working the case explained, "Based on our investigation, she was actually seen later that same morning at a residence in the northwest part of Joplin." Detectives have kept quiet about how they actually obtained this information, but it was revealed that the residence where Sarah was last seen was searched twice in December 2018. Both searches came up empty. Sarah was struggling with addiction at the time of her disappearance. She had reportedly began using after she graduated high school. According to her mother, Sarah turned to drugs after she was the victim of a violent crime. Her drug use landed her in prison in 2010, but when she was released, Sarah was determined to turn her life around. Sarah's mother said that she landed a steady job and stayed clean for about a year, until troubles with the father of her children led her to slipping into her old habits. In the months leading up to her disappearance, Sarah was living with her parents at their home in Joplin. However, they were hoping to get her into a residential treatment program. Before they could, Sarah simply vanished. Sarah's mother fears that her daughter is dead. Both parents are clinging to hope that Sarah will come home safely. If you have any information that could lead to Sarah's whereabouts, please contact the Joplin Police Department at 417-623-3131.
Number 5.
Gebar was last seen in University City, Missouri on March 22, 2010. He lived with his mother, Yasmin Rodriguez, and father, Gebar Byrd Jr., in the 6600 block of Crest. Photos of Gebar's parents are posted with this case summary. They had been together for about 6 to 8 years by 2006, but had never married. According to Gebar Sr., Rodriguez took Gebar and left after an argument. He stated she had done the same thing a year before and had stayed with relatives for a month, so he wasn't concerned about her or their son. Rodriguez's relatives reported her and Gebar missing on March 28. Rodriguez's body was found in the Mississippi River in St. Louis, Missouri on April 9. Authorities initially stated there was no obvious signs of trauma, but on closer examination, they discovered a cut on her forehead and bruises on her arms, legs and torso. In late May, Gebar Sr. was charged with her murder and Gebar's murder. Investigators believe Gebar Sr. pushed Rodriguez into the river at Riverview and Spring Garden Drive while she was holding the child in her arms. Rodriguez couldn't swim, something Gebar Sr. was aware of, and both she and their son drowned. Police stated Gebar Sr. had confessed to the crime after initially claiming Rodriguez had intentionally killed their son and then took her own life. According to Rodriguez's family, the couple had a rocky relationship and Gebar Sr. had assaulted Rodriguez before. She thought he was unfaithful and had planned to end their relationship. In October 2011, Gebar Sr. was convicted of second-degree murder for Rodriguez's death and involuntary manslaughter for Gebar's death, as well as child endangerment and second-degree domestic assault. He was sentenced to life in prison for the murder and 3 consecutive 7-year sentences for the other crimes. At his trial, his defense argued that his confession had been coerced. Gebar Sr.'s mother believes her grandson is still alive because his birth certificate and other documents could not be found after his disappearance. Gebar's body has never been found, but foul play is suspected in his case due to the circumstances involved.
Number 6.
Gambling addict leaves for Vegas in fear and is never seen again. What happened to Paul Douglas Cappo in June 1980? Between his ties with organized crime and his $75,000 gambling debt, Cappo knew his life was at stake. Why in the world would he go to Las Vegas if he knew death was near? Paul Douglas Cappo, 28, told his wife goodbye on June 10, 1980, and drove off into the horizon. Cappo was nervous about his trip to Vegas and told his wife that his friends would rather stab you in the back than look at you. Mrs. Cappo was to contact his attorney immediately if her husband missed a scheduled call. In hopes of taking care of his family, Paul took out a $50,000 life insurance policy, with an additional $50,000 accidental death clause. Why was this poor man so nervous? The answer might lie in his organized crime contacts, or perhaps it could be the $75,000 gambling debt he owed to the Tropicana casino. Who knows? Cappo was last seen driving a dark blue 1977 Plymouth four-door car. The car had Kansas City license plates and had a damaged front fender. Perhaps the gambler had a premonition, but whatever the case, neither Paul Cappo nor his car was ever seen again. Unfortunately, no one knows who he was going to meet in Sin City, and very few leads have come in on this case over the past 39 years. If you have any information on this case, please contact Sergeant Benjamin Caldwell with the Kansas City Police Department at 816-234-5136.